Well, this panel is about product obsession. So I would love to start with a big opening question around reflecting on what is product obsession. Ankit, I can see you. There we go. So can you recall a specific moment or specific indicator that let you know and resonate that you were creating a product that people were obsessed with? And please introduce yourselves once you answer this. And I would love to add a question that, what is obsession for you before you answer this question?
Awesome. So let me go first. So hello everyone, I'm Ankit. I am the CEO and co-founder of Quizizz. Quizizz is a learning platform that empowers educators to really deliver a personalized instruction for each and every student. We are used by teachers in almost 90% of the schools in the US, and then globally also the platform is used in 100+ countries. So maybe starting with what even the obsession is, I might break it into two parts. There's this one internal obsession in the company, which is more about our mission and the problem that we are trying to solve. And then there's an external obsession which we as a company strive for, where we not only want to solve the task for our user, but then also want to make sure it feels delightful when we deliver that aspect. So that's at least how we think about obsession at Quizizz. If I recall back, like when did we feel, oh, do we have something special? So I'll go back, when we were just getting started. This was back in 2015, 2016. It was just me, my co-founder Deepak. We were two engineers busy just building the product. And we used to look at, back then called twitter.com, now x.com. We used to just do a search on Quizizz. And I still remember one day we started seeing this hashtag TCA, and then there were like constantly so many tweets that were coming in. We had no idea what does this even mean. And then, we did a Google search. We realized TCA is like the largest teacher conference that happens in Texas. And then someone in the keynote, just picked up Quizizz, they talked about it, and then all the teachers just, liked it so much. So I think that was a time where we felt, oh, we have something special. And then it followed by like a lot of teachers just constantly asking us to improve, right? Like add ABC. So that to us felt like, hey, our community really felt there was something important for them to reach out to us. So I would say, it's going back in time, but those were the time when we felt, okay, we have something special, and that has continued, that I would say momentum had continued.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Smith-Griffin. I'm the CEO of AllHere. AllHere is a Harvard Innovation Labs venture that was founded back in 2016 with first an emphasis on helping to reduce rates of chronic absence through working with parents over two-way text. However, as of March 20th, we are now the creators of Ed. And if you haven't heard of Ed yet, I'll ask, what rock have you been hiding under? But then I'll add that Ed is a tool to help to support parents and kids in school through a 24/7 help as well, with an emphasis on not only absences, but also reading and math. And I would say, for me personally, I became obsessed with solving this problem after having taught 6th and 8th grade math. So how I got into teaching is a story for another day. It was completely by accident. But I think early on, what I realized was that the work that teachers do is so critical, but it is so hard to do when you have students who are missing class. And just to make that as a concrete as possible, if you have student A who misses Monday, student B who misses Tuesday, Thursday, and then C who misses their own set of days as well, it takes a lot of work for educators to try to remediate them. So AllHere's first goal was, how do we solve a problem with as little tech as possible? Because at that time, teachers do heroic things each and every day. They do home visits, phone calls, postcards. So our sense of what we were obsessed with was actually not being an Edtech firm. It was, how do we solve this problem at scale? And then tech became an instrument of doing that work. And I think that I first felt my moment of obsession, and you need it, because at that time I was still teaching. I was still like running AllHere on nights and weekends on like intern power and free ramen, and it was like, how do you push yourself through those phases which feel really grueling? And it is that commitment to, hey, there's a problem that is acutely felt, and it has impact, and we have to solve it. So that's the sense of what obsession looked like at first for me, and that helped me, because as many of you, especially who are building organizations, know, there's never this path, or I should say that there are very few paths where you start a company and it's just up, right? You have to ride the roller coaster waves of, like, in any given day, like, this is great, or this is all going to shit, like, I gotta do something else, right? So you have to be obsessed with something, and if it's not impact, it's going to be very hard to ride those waves that still, where we are now, come sometimes each and every day, sometimes in the same hour. But again, a story for another day. I would say most recently, I got obsessed with the idea of Ed. So for those who don't know, or who have been hiding under some rocks, Ed was the vision of Los Angeles Unified Superintendent, and he is incredible, because throughout his whole career and life, he's really been obsessed with, how do you create the most impact at scale in the quickest way possible. So about a year ago in March, there was an RFP put out for what at that time was called an IAP. And the goal was, how do we make it such that each and every student and each and every family could get connected to the right resource, whether it's focused on counseling, tutoring, reading skill practice, math too, at the right time without causing more work for the field, right? Like, that was the question. So for me, I got obsessed with, how do we solve that problem with as little tech as possible? Because there's so many tech tools out there. So we had to take that sense of commitment to being obsessed with solving that problem at scale through the RFP process, through pitching, through getting run through the ringer that all of you who do work with LAUSD knows is just part and parcel what it means to do work with a system that complex and that large. And I would say, as of late, I became obsessed that we were on the right path with Ed when we put it in front of kids, right? So we took student voice as a critical input for the creation of this tool since it was at its idea stage, which meant that we did interviews, we did focus groups. We asked kids what they did not like, even more than we asked them what they did like, and the same for parents too. And not just parents who are easy to find. We looked under rocks for parents who are English language learners, like folks who typically do not get to sit at tables of what it means to create product. And we asked them, and I knew we hit something when, after one of our focus groups, we were dealing with a group of 6 to 9th grade kids. And those kids are brutal. If they don't like something, they're gonna tell you. And when they were walking them back to class, the kids looked at my CTO, wave Toby, and then what they said was, does this mean we don't have to use X, Y, Z? And they were naming tools. I won't name those tools, but that was a moment that was critical for me, because if you don't know, students in America have access to over 2,500 different education technology tools every single day. Think of the cognitive load that creates when a student just wants to practice math, but you have Zimbalzoot and all this other stuff, because these EdTech tools have really funny names sometimes. sometimes. And what that means for all that context switching and the impact on their outcomes. However, for a student to have sat through a 30-minute focus group, tried this tool, and be able to say, I think it likes me, because Ed is a character and a platform at the same time. And can I do this instead of? And knowing that what they were doing was not only fun, but that was reading practice, that was math practice, that was critical skill practice that sometimes school systems purchase these EdTech tools and they do not get used. However, they did that skill practice with joy and with rigor and with happiness. And for me, I got obsessed and inspired anew. And that's a feeling, especially for all of my product leaders in the room, that I wish we all have the opportunity to feel, because it's this marrying of mission and am I solving a problem that people care about? Because we also know that there are a lot of tools that look for problems, right? In a way that students find joy out of, that will drive their outcomes as well.
Amazing, amazing. Go ahead, Joanna.
Hi, my name is Anu, and I'm the president and founder of ParentSquare. So some of you may know ParentSquare is, very simply put, it's a school home communication platform. But other than communication, it's everything around communication. As a parent, you have to fill forms, you have to sign permission slips, you need to know when your student is in class, or a grade is falling below a particular grade point, or you need to talk to the teachers and communicate with them about how your child is doing. So it's basically, we say it's everything the parents need from school and the school needs from parent. It's one point of interaction for them. So founded ParentSquare in 2011. We're a husband-wife team. There's my husband right there. He's the CEO of the company. And so, it was really a two-pronged idea at the time. As a parent, and this was 2011, 2012, there were no technology tools really that we were using to communicate with parents. So it was those flyers in the backpack that were coming home, and the office was writing emails, the PTA was using Google Groups, and principal was sending their own newsletters and robocalls. And as a working parent, it's like, oh my God, how do I keep track of everything coming from school? So always wanted to unify. The idea was to unify all of that. And then I took an year sabbatical from my work, and then I realized that the teacher-parent connection that can happen as a stay-at-home mom was just amazing. I mean, I could go to pick up my child from school, and that was really nice. So I really wanted to unify the communications and build that teacher-parent connection. And so that was, we decided, okay, we want to build this product, and talked to my husband, and he was like, go sell it first. So, so built a pitch deck, whoever are the founders here, went to the school principal, and I said, hey, do you want this? And she was so incredible. She's like, here are 2 teachers, go build this product. I did not know it was a charter school, very easy for them to, be innovative and start new ideas. So we built this tool, and for a moment of obsession, it was so funny. We built this tool, and soon after, a couple of months, it was end of the year, and the 5th grade teacher, what she did on ParentSquare, at 5 p.m. in the evening, she sent out a notice saying, here are 70 items for the end of the year party that I need for my students. And there were 100 students in the grade level. By morning, they had 70 emails in their inbox, because anytime a person signed up, we would send an email to everybody saying, they signed up to bring forks. And those forks and those donuts and those strings, oh my God. The next morning, I had to send an apology email out, but every single person came and said thank you to me still. Can you imagine? They're like, it's okay, because we've never had those lists fill up so fast. This was so easy, so simple. So, you know, that was that moment of realization that, yes, people need something. But, you know, if you look at obsession for a company, for us, really, it's always driven by just, hey, what's that one number we can track? And for customers, it's retention. So are you able to retain your customers year after year? And for prospects, it's growth. How much are you growing year after year? If you're not growing and if you're not retaining, then there's something wrong. So if you're growing, but there's a leaky bucket and you're losing all those customers, that means they don't like something about your product. So for ParentSquare, you know, after the acquisition of Remind, we now serve about 25 million students in the country. So, I mean, you know, there are total 55 million students, so we feel really fortunate to be able to serve them. But even last year, our retention was 99.4%, and we're very, very proud of that. But we know that that's tough and that's really hard to maintain. But, you know, there is an obsession about the product. And, you know, just as ParentSquare alone, without acquisitions, we have been growing over 50% year on year. So, and those two numbers are very important, but, you know, as some of you know, those are lagging indicators. So for leading indicators, how do you trend it? So for our customers, we look at what is their usage, what is the adoption rate, you know, how many teachers within a school district are using the product, how many messages are being sent. And on the prospect side is the pipeline, like are more people talking to us. So, you know, those numbers are very, very important to track.
Amazing, amazing. And I think we talked a lot about different actors during this conversation. So you talked about teachers, you talked about students, decision-making. And I think we all know we are in a complex system. But we are a very unique sector in that way. We have a big challenge that we have to create products that not only our end users are obsessed with, but the people that are making the decision. So it's your buyer versus your user, and both have to be obsessed. So how do you navigate that dynamic and the design, thinking of catering obsession of those two users, the buyer and the user?
Right. So I would say, like, at least at Quizizz, we are very clear on our mission. So our mission is we want to motivate each and every learner by empowering the educator. So when we are building a solution, we are clear who we are building it for. It is for the end kid and teacher. However, all of us work in this system where the administration, the principals have a key role to play. They are able to provide the right guardrails so that things don't fall off the cliff. And while we think about, you know, the solutions which we build, we still are very much focused on the joy for the student, efficiency for the teacher, flexibility for the teacher. However, as the company started growing, we started also hearing the pain points that the administrators had, the principal had. They wanted certain set of visibility. They wanted to have certain set of controls. And at Quizizz, we have tried to make sure that I feel there's a broader alignment in the system, right? Like, so even a principal or an administrator is thinking about ensuring that final learning outcome happens. However, for that to achieve, they want certain set of, I would say, visibility. And as we continue to grow and build Quizizz, we kept true to our mission, where we said, like, let's focus on still being obsessed on our end users, which are teachers and students. However, let's make sure we give the right guardrails that makes the other side, which is like the principals, the administrations, also to feel good about these tools. So, like, one example there would be, we have been at the forefront on the student privacy. So we want to make sure the product is still very easy to use. However, it does meet all the privacy needs. So we have been forefront of on the privacy front, and those are the things, at least, how we have been navigating this. I personally believe it might become very challenging to not have that focus, but again, that's at least how we have been operating on this.
Sure. So for us, it's always really important. In education, you'll often find that the buyer persona is very different from the user persona. So for us, very, very important to understand who your buyers are. Typically in education, you will find that it's a committee decision, right? So there's not just one department and for us, it was the technology department because you're unifying so many tools within the organization. It was also the communications department because really they are the ones who are making sure that every parent is being notified. And then also the superintendent because for them, it's the brand building and how are we presenting our district to our community. So to think of this buyer persona and what each one of them are we solving for them and what are we solving for them? And one of the advice is that, hey, try to reduce your buyer persona. I know we have 3, but one of the other things we do on our platform, for instance, is payments. But that's not something we lead with because if we were to do that, then a 4th persona, which is the chief business officer, the CBO office, would also become a part of that buying cycle and taking a decision. So figure out who your buyers are and what is the minimum set of buyer persona you need to cater to. Then on the user side, obviously for us, it's the teachers, it's the students, the parents, the community, the principal. We say it's we enable the librarian to send a message, the school nurse, the transportation office. Everybody is a user for us. So how can we make it easy for them to be able to adopt the platform? So those are the 2 things that you need to think about and juggle for.
Absolutely. And I would say that if you built your product in a way that was intended to solve a problem, you have to know that rent is going to be due, right? You have to prove that you solve that or that the use of your tool helped to move the indicator on the problem that you set out to solve. So what that looked like for AllHere at its early stages was that because we build ourselves as a scalable answer to issues of chronic absenteeism, we had to be able to have independently proven that implementing the product moved the needle on that. And I say independently as well because it is important to invest out of a sense of commitment to doing the best job as possible for kids and the investments that a school systems make, that what they intend to achieve through an implementation is what actually happens. So we had, for AllHere, an independent research team from Teachers College. Sorry, that music is distracting me. Sorry. It sounds, I almost want to dance, but I gotta stop myself. We had a independent research team do a RCT, which was able to prove that implementing our tool moved absences by a factor of 17%, that it was able to reduce the percentage of kids who were earning a D or F by 38%, and that it improved student GPAs by a third of a point. And that was huge because when in the chronic absence space, what we found was that school systems treated movements of anywhere from 1 to 3 points on any of those as huge. So when we were able to have independently proven that, like not a glossy white paper, but a research team proved that level of impact had happened, that really helped. And I would say, as of late, as it pertains to Ed, what is critical for us is that when a lot of school system leaders thought about what interoperability of tools mean, that used to mean just single sign-on, right? So can every student just access an app without having to know or memorize their password? What has become possible with AI is moving the needle on what that looks like from just single sign-on. So can we create new ways of tools being able to interact with each other in ways that drive student outcomes? So Ed has content partners like Age of Learning, hi Sunil, Amplify, who have all brought their tools to the table to play in the same sandbox in ways that were just not possible prior. So a lot of ways of like looking at did you reach the goal actually tracks back to how did you sell or pitch your tool to and how does that help you prove that impact has been reached, and how do you meet the needs of a rapidly changing set of expectations for what school system leaders are seeking out of their tools?
Amazing. And I know we talked about this before, and we talked about the scale you're at and the growth stage. And I think we always talk about the importance of feedback, user centricity, but sometimes it's very hard to, we know we had to get feedback, we know we have to hear the user, but really, I want to hear some like examples of how you've driven feedback into direct satisfaction or moving some KPIs of today of your company throughout feedback and that generated obsession on your product.
Yeah, so one is how do you incorporate educator voice at every stage of creating a tool? Usually what Edtech does is that we have organizations who are really passionate, who really want to help to solve some XYZ issue, and then we create a product that we think is fully formed, and then we sell it. However, school system leaders, at least for AllHere, what we are finding is that folks are less interested in what your hypothesis is about your one product and how it will solve all of their needs, to creating opportunities for them to give feedback that is not only heard, but is used to drive what the product looks, sounds, and feels like for their own kids. So what that looked like for us is interviews, focus groups, and running those in ways that are not just a performative exercise, but are actually used to drive what the end user sees when they interact with a specific tool.
So maybe let me start with when I started Quizizz. So my background is I grew up in India. I also, was in the schooling system within the Indian context. But when we built Quizizz, we built it for the world. And then a lot of teachers in the States started using it in the early days. So they were like the initial early adopters. And both me and my co-founder Deepak, we were like, okay, how do we learn from these teachers? So I still remember this tactical thing I'll share. Like, this is back in the day when we started, we used to have this chat box where both me and Deepak would man that chat box. Late at the night, we'll stay. And then at the moment, we'll chat with our teachers. And they'll give, one thing I'll say, working in this industry is they are really open to sharing what their students want. And they would be giving us all that feedback. So I think from day zero at Quizizz, we have always kept that teacher and student voice at the center of what we have been building. Unfortunately now, given the scale, we can't be on chat box. So we have figured out different ways to scale this. So today we have like a very thriving community forum where teachers can come in, they can themselves vote on certain features, talk about things. But we as a company also encourage, even so I came to ASU+GSV, my Monday morning was more visiting a school. So I think that we have made as an integral part of our culture. And one very recent example I do want to share. So agreeing to your point, obsessing on the problem is so important. We continue to have these user interviews. We chat with our teachers and understand, hey, how are you using Quizizz? And one thing which was so fascinating for us was there were a lot of teachers who were today using Quizizz. They were taking the same content and then making copies of it and making some minor adjustment. So they might end up reducing the answer options. They might end up in one version reducing the time it takes for a student to use or give that quiz. So we were very curious, hey, why are you doing it? So they talked about this whole idea about accommodation profile, how that is so important. And then that was like an aha moment for us. And we were like, why is it not integral part of our system? Very recently, in February, we launched this idea of accommodation profile. And we have been getting like amazing, I'll say, feedback from our teachers. Like one recent tweet I want to share from Mrs. Wilson. She was like, hey, it's life-changing for me. I'm literally crying, with tears of joy. So I would say, at least for us, we have just been, that was the reason why we are even here, is because we have kept our eyes and ears open, and that I feel we have now integrated as a core part of our culture, even as we continue to scale.
Yeah, so, obviously, customer feedback is super, super important at every stage. And for ParentSquare, always it has been that we are not going to build a feature if the customer is not asking for it. So, we do a ton of experiments, but the experiments typically are not around, hey, let's try whether teachers like it or our buyers like it. Because, just like he said, like they're going to ask for so many things that your roadmap is always going to be full of things. So that's there. So from the very beginning, ParentSquare always used to like, hey, what are we focusing on? So for us in the beginning, our focus market was only California. Right now, we're in all 50 states, and our focus is United States. We're not going outside of the country yet. So we always like to focus. So find your focus as to what, narrow your market there so that you can focus on their needs. In America, I would say 50 states are almost like selling to 50 different countries if you're selling to the school districts and not going directly to the consumers. So that was a big learning. Every state is a new learning. But going back to the customers and getting their feedback, so early on, we built an advisory council for us. So, people really like that, the administrators. So we have about 18 to 20 advisory council members, and they serve a term of 2 years. And we hold quarterly meetings with them. This is outside of the daily feedback that we get from them through our user groups, through our conferences, through the support tickets, through Sohit and I still make it a point. Every week we pick a customer to talk to, and we ask them, hey, what are the use cases? What are the examples? So those are very, very important. And then you permeate them throughout your company. So I don't know how many of you use Slack. I mean, we just, being a remote company, we live on Slack and way too many channels on Slack. But one of the channels is celebrations, shout outs, and customer stories where we share all of these. So it's important that everybody, including your developers, can feel the customer pain, can read those stories, can connect with the customer.
I love that part. I have tons of questions, but I know they will kill me because they told me I had to be very strict on the time. So I'll do this last one that I think is the best. We talked about students, we talked about teachers, we talked about the obsession. I would talk inside out, but I want to come back inside of the company. I think we all know how important talent is, that obsession is built top down, bottom up, all the way through. And maybe when you're small and you're a group of 2 founders, 3 founders, and you start this company, maintaining obsession could be a little bit easier because it's very small group and maybe table talking about the product. But now that you are more in the growth stage and you are experiencing this scale, how are you maintaining obsession in the product with your talent. And I would love to also have some examples of this because I think it's critical around what we feel.
Yeah, I'll take this one first. And for me to answer this, I have to travel backwards and I have to think of who I am and where I'm from. So I grew up in Miami, Florida, and a lot of people hear that and they think like South Beach, and that's not the experience for most people who actually live there. I lived in one of the most lowest income tracts, and what that meant was I went to a school that at that time, the ceilings leaked. I shared books. But although I lived it in a place where there were physical signs of disinvestment, I didn't know it at that time because I had educators who made it their charge to make it feel like their classrooms were Harvard University, that you were gonna show up every day, do your exact best, nothing less, and get it done. And when we think about that, I think for me, what that means it shapes what I look for in my team. I look for in my team people who have personal charges, personal ties to this work, because you need that fuel. If you're getting into it, I like to say when I'm having a hard day sometimes, I like to say to my team or to members of my C team that there are easier ways to make money because sometimes that's just true. But I also think of when it comes to innovation, and innovation that's been created through tech, what that often looks like is kids who look like me, who grew up like me, typically do not get access to innovative things first. They are usually the last to receive it. I think it's an equity challenge, and I think with AllHere, our personal charge and how we look at our mission as a team is the last will be the first, and not by accident, but on purpose. And when that and that being how we anchor ourselves drives how we do every part of our work.
I'll maybe keep it brief because I'm seeing we are almost at the end of the time. But I'd say it's all boils down to the culture. As the leaders, as the founders, I think it's your responsibility to make sure your team is clear on what the ethos of the companies are and what your culture stands for. So I'll just say internally a couple of things that we have added in our culture is to keep that customer voice as front. So I can go into all the product matrix and all the uplift that happens. However, coming back to the way we build product, it's not only about hitting the business outcome, we also want to make sure the user gets the delight. So we keep the guardrails in terms of when someone is building something, are you also making sure there's a delight factor? So that's a core part of what we have added in the system. And then, again, it's building culture is just repeating the key things again and again. So we have built certain, I would say, processes in systems. So whether it is doing the school activities, meeting your users, we have kind of asked our team to be so close to our users so that, it is so ingrained in our culture. And is everything at the perfect place? Probably not. And we kind of keep on just bringing this idea that, hey, you need to have the empathy for your end user, and how do you be close to them is, I think, the point we have been pushing in our culture, so that as the company grows, that continues to stay the core part on how we have been building.
100% agree with Ankit there. So, for us, always as we're growing the company, culture is the most important thing. And, we did a workshop on culture, very easy, just read a book which everyone read at the same time. So, when we were doing that, that was Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, and we realized that, hey, culture is not something that you aspire for. So you cannot write those words and hope that everybody in the company will follow it. Culture is really what every team member exhibits. And that team is very, very important. So, we realized that there are two things which are in ParentSquare. We call them permissions to play. So we would not even hire people if they don't exhibit that. And that is 1, passion, and 2, humility. So if you're not passionate about coming to work every day to solve problems for the teachers and the parents and the schools and the families, then you would not be able to survive in this company, right? So you don't even get to be there. And second is humility. Everybody must be humble because this is how we work with each other. And then really the core values of the company is what every single employee exhibits, and which is champions for our customers. And that feeling that every one of us is in it together. We win together is what we call it. But we don't have a culture where, hey, that's not my job, I'm in marketing. Doesn't happen that way. So everyone jumps in to help every single organization within the company. So, those things are very, very important as you grow your company. And constantly level up, I would say. Every time you hire a person, it's like, is this person leveling up our team? So that's very, very important.
Great. Please give a big round of applause to these amazing people. Thank you so much.